We're just a small town, just under 6,000 people at 5,900. But a lot of history in Oelwein. Just celebrated 150 years actually last year. The number one role of the city administrator is implement the plans of the city council. Well, and I also think we need the elected officials to dream, because when you're stuck in the trenches looking at the budget every day and they're like, we want to do this, and you're just like, well, we got $1 today to spend. So, and as a city manager, the joke is, I'm not going to give you an answer, but I'll give you 75 recommendations of what you should do.
Welcome to Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. I'm your host, Dave Martin, and with us today is our guest, Dylan Mulfinger. He's the city administrator for Oelwein. Did I say that right?
Oelwein, Iowa.
Oelwein, Iowa. Yep. See, I'm not from Iowa. I'm from Brooklyn.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Well, luckily, I have someone who is from Iowa here, my co-host, the mayor of Dubuque and the president of the Iowa League of Cities, Brad Cavanagh. Welcome.
Hello, Dave.
Welcome,
good to
gentlemen.
be here again.
Yes, indeed. So let's start with your town. Tell me a little bit about it.
Oelwein, Iowa, often described as the hub of Northeast Iowa. So we're located 45 minutes northeast of Waterloo, originally where the train stations all met from Chicago, Minneapolis, and Kansas City. And so just a gigantic hub for the railroad and the fixing of essentially steam engines at the start and then diesel engines going forward. So center of town is a large switch railroad yard. Now sits the home of Transco that refurbishes rail cars, one of the leading industries in the United States. We're just a small town, just under 6,000 people at 5,900. But a lot of history in Oelwein. Just celebrated 150 years actually last year. So great place to live. Very connected in Eastern Iowa, as we always are over there. And so just a nice little town.
What's the biggest issue you're tackling?
Oh, I have a list, but I guess we only have 20 minutes today. It's definitely housing. I think that you're aggressive in your city to bring people in, but you just don't have the housing availability that we're seeing. And so we have empty lots, but those are old school, platted out 50-foot lots by 100-foot. And in Iowa, people want bigger lots. They want more space. And so we as a city are now trying to figure out how to fit a house in there, and that's probably the hardest part.
I'm sure as the mayor of Dubuque, you know nothing about that problem.
Oh, no. Yeah. We have all the housing that we need, just like every other city in Iowa, except for Oelwein. No, it really is. I mean, it's an issue across the state and across the country. I mean, we hear about this when we talk to people in national conferences and things like that too. It is a matter of figuring it out though. Are you having any luck? I mean, what are some of the things that you're trying to be able to move forward with housing in Oelwein?
I just came out of a housing the presentation, and they said affordable housing, and that's not a word that goes together anymore. And so our luck is one house a year, which is unfortunate. And it's usually just somebody making a big investment on their own. And we just don't have the availability or the resources to really expand the utilities out. And geographically, we're already kind of locked in. Oelwein's essentially in the valley a little bit. And so we're, working through things, whereas we promote development or give people money to rehab their houses. And so, trying 10 things, hoping that one of them leads off, and we really haven't had that. But we've been looking into more of the city taking charge and potentially just building homes, trying to get people in those. And so that's probably the next avenue we'll open up.
You're talking about a lot of these things, and you get into the technical weeds of things as a city administrator. I want to talk about your role a little bit, because I think it's something that I'm not sure people always entirely understand what it is. You know who the mayor is, who the city council is, to call them and when you have some sort of an issue. But you're the person who really takes charge to get all those things done. So talk a little bit about that role and what that means when you're trying to practice good government in Oelwein.
Yes, the number one role of the city administrator is implement the plans of the city council. And oftentimes, even people that I've known in town, they're like, well, aren't you elected, Dylan? I was like, nope, definitely not elected. Wouldn't want to put my hand in an election either anytime. But we're appointed, and so I oversee all the departments of the city, and that is every general funded department, and then all the way from utilities, parks and rec. And so one moment you're talking about a diminutor in a wastewater plant, and the next morning you're talking about how to get the grass greener in a park. So, we're all over the place, and we are appointed, and so it's an appointment that has no end date if you're doing a good job, I guess you should say.
Right.
And so you have to stay diligent in ensuring that you are providing a good service to the community, and you have to make sure that you're reaching those goals, whether they're in a comp plan or even in a 5-year plan that council has provided. And so it's showing up every day, putting on a good face, because you get excited to serve the public, and that's, I think, why we're there, and making sure that every department's doing their job. So that's what we're really focused on administration, is just getting the goals accomplished.
I have a city administrator and a mayor talk a little bit about how you guys work together. You don't work together, but what's the relationship like now that you can talk freely because you don't work for each other?
Yeah, I have so much respect for elected people, and my mayor often jokes, he's like, no, you're not. And I do. I mean, you have to walk into situations that you may be briefed on for a couple minutes, or maybe you know a little bit about, and people think you know everything. Well, you're part of the city, aren't you? And really, they rely on their staff to make sure that things are going well and things are working out. And I've always used the mayor as a good talking figure, and he's been comfortable in that. And then he takes on the large problems, and he can tackle them with us. We provide the avenue for him, and he always knocks it out. And so those elected officials, they're really the face of the city regardless. I mean, we show up every day, and we're in our offices, and we're getting it done, and we do a lot of work. But people, no matter where you're at in Iowa, they're like, well, the mayor will get it done. And that mayor may be just someone that is a figurehead and shows up to meetings, or it may be the mayor that's sitting in the meetings and really playing a role in it. But staff's still going to do their job. But I always think when elected officials are getting the calls at night or getting stopped at the grocery store, it's still a harder job.
So, Mayor, are you always getting it done?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it's actually the staff that's getting all these things done.
No, he just said you were.
And I'll say it the same way that Dylan just said it, just in the opposite direction. I have so much respect for city administrators, and ours is called the city manager, and the staff that they have to do things on a daily basis. I mean, it is them who are answering the calls at 3 a.m. They're the ones that are doing all the work all day long. There's just a lot that goes into the role that you have, but it takes the best governments on a local level have really good partnerships between the elected officials and the city managers and city administrators and the staff who get things done. There has to be that mutual respect going back and forth, and really support. I mean, what I see my role as is I provide not just the financial support, which is really, really important to be able to get all these things done, but also provide the moral support and, as the face of the city, being able to talk to the community about why these things are important. When staff brings an idea to us and asks us to implement it from a policy standpoint, we do that, and then we are able to talk about why it's important and help the community understand it too. And you're right, we have to catch up pretty quickly. We're surrounded by really smart people who give us some really good information, but we have to catch up pretty quickly to be able to talk about it publicly. Well,
and I also think we need the elected officials to dream, because when you're stuck in the trenches looking at the budget every day, and they're like, we want to do this, and you're just like, well, we got $1 today to spend. So, but, constantly getting those newly elected officials in that push the envelope and really say like, well, instead of a 1-year plan, let's make this a 3 or 5 year plan and see if it's accomplishable. I always enjoy that. And it's always a fresh face. Like, they come in, they want to do good, and they want to help their community.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about that, because I say this in front of the mayor. How often does it happen, or how do you manage when some new person comes into city government and says, I have this great idea, and you look at them and go, okay, not a great idea. In fact, a bad idea. And here's why, we tried this 5 years ago when you weren't here. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it does happen about every 2 years. We always joke on the admin side. Right. And they come in, they have the idea, and there's nothing worse than immediately shooting down an idea, because they have worked on it. They've put their passion into it. And so we just walk them along the path. And I've been in Oelwein 8 years, and I hate to say it, but sometimes I do say, we tried that once. It didn't work.
Okay.
But that was a different time. That was different people. And so how do we really gauge what we're going to do? And it's really setting them up and giving them all the choices that they can make to get to that solution. And as a city manager, the joke is, I'm not going to give you an answer, but I'll give you 75 recommendations of what you should do.
Is that true, Mr. Mayor?
I would say that's very true. Okay. That's very true.
And we like to, get you on that road to success. But, you can dream big in these small towns, but we have a lot of limits with resources, and we have to almost sometimes make something out of nothing. And so when they talk about bringing in 17 soccer fields and a field, it's like, could we get there? Yeah. Is it going to take us some time? Absolutely.
And is it going to cost us money we don't have?
Yeah. And those resources are scarce, and I love dreaming big, but at the same time, we have functions at a city that have to be done.
Right.
We have to clean streets. We have to unclog sewers. Like, those are absolutes, and we can't shy away from those.
I'm enjoying this sort of point counterpoint discussion we're having right now. So Mr. Mayor, what do you do when you have an idea that, as Dylan said, you're passionate about, that you've thought about, and you approach, the city administrators, and they go, no, but you want to.
Yeah, there are some ideas where you listen to those 75 recommendations and realize that the city administrator is actually absolutely correct about this, and you need to back down.
Okay.
And then there are others where you're like, well, hang on, because it is our job to do the dreaming in many ways, and we're dreaming on behalf of the people who elected us, by the way. So we have to think about all the feedback that we're receiving and all the things like that are leading towards this. So. I'm not one to take no lightly, and that's not an answer. I generally like to hear when it's something that's important to me, but also important, I think, to the community. So, I do continue to push. Here's one thing that's really, really important, though, and I think this is what makes a good elected official. You have to listen. You have to listen, and you have to listen for understanding. And oftentimes,
the city administrator is nodding his head. Yes, this is a podcast. You can't see it.
And I think that goes for all the parties involved, the community in general as well. I mean, we have to listen for understanding so we get the truth about what's really going on. There are facts that you can't argue with about some of these things that we have to do in cities, and you have to listen to those things to be able to make sure you understand it, and then recognize where those dreams that you have, those big visions, can fit into that. Because I do think we have to adjust to that sometimes. You can't just go off and do whatever you want. Even if you say it out loud a bunch of times, you have to be able to get it done.
I think he's laughing at you.
I've never seen that. Never seen somebody just say it a bunch of times thinking it'll happen. So.
Never, ever. So we do have some questions here.
Okay. Yes, we do. We're going to get to the heart of your thoughts on government and how things are going in Oelwein. So tell me what makes Oelwein. I'm not from here. Tell me what makes it a real Iowa city.
Gosh, it's growing up in even more rural than Oelwein. Oelwein's a big city at 5,000, which is comical for Iowa. But we are a place that people...
You do know I live in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I know. But man, big city Iowa. We'll get you down there.
All right. I can't wait to go.
Yeah. And so it has amenities that people need from the rural areas. They come into town. And, I ride my bike to school with my daughter in the mornings, and then I take off to work. My wife stays at home with our other kids, and people have those lifestyles in Oelwein where they're so comfortable. They love it. They're meeting people. They're making great relationships. And, that's really what the Iowa community is all about, is having a safe place to call home. And that is Oelwein. Like, obviously we have our troubles like every other community, but when you get there, we got the downtown. We got the industrial park. We check in those boxes that the state of Iowa requires. And so, we're seeing those things and those amenities, and people are making the investment. They're taking on risk, and they're developing a downtown building, or they're starting that new business. And so you're seeing that churn in Oelwein, and that's what's really exciting. And when people say, why do you live there? It's like, because I love it. I love every part of it, and I love walking. I love biking, and Oelwein provides all those opportunities.
Do you ride your bike to work?
I do. I wear a suit twice a month, and that is city council nights.
Today is not one of those days.
Yep.
Good.
And some days when it is about 85 degrees in the morning and it's council night, I have to weigh my options of whether I'm not going to put that suit on. But so far, I survived the summer.
Okay, good.
So the second one here. What does good government look like in Oelwein?
That's a huge question, and I just love to answer it. But
we have time.
It really is.
Podcast. We have time.
Yeah, it is listening to the constituents and what they want. I think you come out of school in public administration, you're like, I'm going to do all these things because this is what a successful city does. But you need to do what your community wants. And that's the people that have lived there for their whole life, had generations of Oelwein people behind them, and that's where they want to see Oelwein flourish in that direction. And good governance is sticking to that plan and not making your city what you think it needs to be. There's always a huge push in, I think, these cities to, move in a direction that they see as a successful city. I just air quoted. I better say I do that.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
And, what is that successful city in one of those boxes? Like, well, maybe we don't need any of that to be a successful city, and we just need to be Oelwein. And I talk about that a lot, and I really want people to understand, like, during my time and with the elected officials we're only going to continue to invest in things that will make the next generation successful. And a lot of times that's boring stuff. Water, sewer infrastructure, roads, all those things that people will get excited about for about one day. And so, what good governance is in Oelwein is sticking to that. And especially on the staff side, is showing up every day having your ethics in line and really paying attention to what people want to see you to be successful.
You said giving the people what they're asking for. What are the people in Oelwein asking for right now?
Streets every day, not like every other day. It's better streets every day.
Okay.
That's what they want to see, and that's the hardest part. You know, you're trying to pave over some streets that are brick from the 1950s. You're trying to rehab some of that. They want to see affordability. They want to see amenities in the downtown. And so those are the things that we really have to push for. And they want to be able to enjoy Oelwein, whether it's a weeknight or a weekend.
So what are you most proudest of that you've been able to accomplish in your, I think, 8 years you said in Oelwein?
Yeah. Oelwein had a big fallout in the 80s from the railroad leaving town.
Okay.
And so people just left their houses. Like they didn't see any value in them and they left town. So we had a large buyout from landlords, and some of those landlords did great, supported their homes, but too many of them chose not to really reinvest in those homes. And so in 2016, we started discussions on rental inspections, and then by 2018, we had implemented it. And cities in Iowa under 15,000 are not required to have rental inspection, but it was absolutely needed in Oelwein. And we sat through the meetings where we got screamed at. We sat through the meetings where we told it was going to ruin the town. And, you know, we're, 5 years into it, or at this point, and it's been the best thing that's ever happened.
The town did not get ruined.
No. Surprise. And so we're seeing reinvestment in homes. We're seeing homes getting removed that had needed to be removed for years. You know, when people accuse me of getting rid of affordable housing, I was like, it's not affordable if it's a threat to the person living there.
Right.
And so when the basement's ready to collapse or the roof's falling in, like, this shouldn't be habitable. And, you know, my team at community development and my council, they held strong and really pushed on it, and probably the largest jump forward. And it was a bold move for Oelwein, but the only thing to get us out of, I wouldn't say a rut, but out of the routine, is bold moves. And so we've taken that with our rental inspection, and we just took it this summer with our utilities by doing a significant rate increase to really start a plan to fix up our water and sewer.
Okay.
That's a great way of describing what good government looks like too. I mean, the best way to do things is those bold moves sometimes. Yeah. I think that's a great statement and a powerful one that really fits with pretty much any city of any size across the state. All right, final important question here. What is your favorite place in Oelwein?
My favorite place in Oelwein? Oh, this is a cop-out. So I went together with 4 other gentlemen, as we are described in town, and we opened a tap room.
You did?
So we have 48 taps, a bunch of fancy wines that I don't care about, and then some.
You're not the sommelier.
No. My favorite wine is actually a beer.
Okay.
So, but we took a old Eagles club, and we completely renovated it. We put in a cooler and a bar, and our goal is to bring beer into Oelwein that you may not be able to get even in Iowa, or you just want to get it locally.
Can I get us on tap?
Actually, you can.
Thank you.
My gosh.
And what is the name of this establishment?
Ampersand.
Okay.
So I got in before the name, or after the name, I should say. And so I said, we can name it something funny, but if it doesn't say tap room on it, I'm out. Like, no one's going to know what it is. And so we made the investment, and we've been working on it. But my thing is, like, we need a place for people to stay. Like, they need to hang out and get to know each other in the community. And so that's what I'm most proud of, is it allows people to build relationships in this open space and really get together and be friendly to them. The other part of it is family friendly. Like, just because you got young kids doesn't mean you don't want to go out.
Right.
And so we've made it pretty family friendly, and that's been really good to have in there. It's a great meeting space. When people come in from out of town, they're just blown away at how nice it is.
And how many times have you said, well, why don't you stop by the bar tonight? We'll have a talk.
Oh my gosh. When it first opened, I was like, I can't keep up this pace. And so my wife was like, you should probably calm down a bit. So, because at one point I knew all the beers on tap, and now I'm a little fuzzy on it, which is probably a good thing.
Do you spend some time behind the bar?
Actually, we have owner Sundays, which is great for me on the, I guess I should say, fiscal side of the private industry, because I've learned so much about a business and what it takes in Oelwein to really get it going. And so I stand behind the bar on Sundays.
That must have given you some new perspective, you know, of being a business owner that had to fill out the right forms and fill out the right documents and get the licenses and make sure that the sidewalk was set back from the street, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What did you find in that process that surprised you?
The city regulations were super easy and they were nice to deal with, obviously. The hardest part was just keeping the investment going and having the capital. And that's what I've really learned is when people keep telling us that the city, get more restaurants, get more bars, get more things going on. I was like, well, you have to be involved in that. It's not just the city figuring it out. And these small town business owners that are on our downtown, they're giving up huge chunks of their life to try and make the town a better place. And that's really what I've reflected on is just the investment they're making in the community. And I always tell people, I was like, if you're looking at city staff or elected officials to make your city better, start with yourself and make the city better. And it's going to get a lot better, a lot quicker.
It must give you a new perspective, though, as going from just a sort of government employee to being a government employee and now a local businessman.
Yeah, the state of Iowa did a property tax cut for commercial businesses. And I was like, well, on one hand, not so bad, but on the other hand, really hurting my city. So definitely a new perspective. And it's really helped all the guys in the group to kind of see the vision that we're trying to have of improving the community.
Dylan Mulfinger, the city administrator from Oelwein, Iowa. Got it right that time.
Absolutely.
Oelwein, Iowa. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you, and I hope that you and the mayor have come to agreement on some things. And even though you can't work together, I realize now that you can work together.
Absolutely. Yes. So thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Good. Thanks for coming, Mr. Mayor. As always, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
And learning more about Iowa. It is. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That's our show. Thanks for listening. Join us again right here for the next episode of Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. Make sure you like us and share us with your friends. Follow us on Facebook. Leading Iowa is a Valley Park production in association with the Iowa League of Cities. The show is executive produced by Katie Wheeler and Brad Cavanagh for the Iowa League of Cities. Jim Ludlow, Dave Martin, that's me, and David Snyder are executive producers for Valley Park Productions. Our show is edited and produced by Jason Stershic.